and so forth. So the main focus of our accelerator is that we're investing into startups that are using technology to contribute to a better world and a better future. So to say that they have to contribute to solve one or more of the sustainability goals set out by the UN.
Okay, and Clara? Clara, I don't hear you. Do you guys hear Clara?
No, we can't hear Clara.
Florent, you want to
continue
and give Clara a second to organize?
If she wants to run a few tests, I'll go. So I'm representing 50 Partners Impact. We are a positive impact startup accelerator. We founded and launched this accelerator in 2018. The specificity of this accelerator is it's co-founded and fully owned by 50 successful entrepreneurs. Among them, you'll find founders of BlaBlaCar, La Ruche Kidiwi, Direct Energy, and many other very successful businesses. We're committed to help a very small number of startups to succeed in scaling up. So we will select between six to 7 projects every year. We don't work on a cohort basis. We organize committees every quarter to select 1 or 2 projects. Every project is followed and accompanied on a personal base. It's one-on-one. And regarding the topics we're covering, we are actively looking or seeking for projects who are addressing directly one specific sustainable development goals. So we're also referring to that. And I think that's it. We're based out in Paris. I think that was mentioned before.
Okay, and Clara? Okay, why don't we continue? And Clara, I let you reorganize, and when you can organize, because I see you're not on mute, huh? No. Okay. So we'll see when she comes back. Okay. So I think basically the idea today was really to look at accelerators as a super interesting point of contact between the entrepreneurs and between investors and companies, and basically the entire ecosystem. A lot of it boils down to the meeting point as the accelerators. And so I wanted to look from your perspective and really see what you see happening with the entrepreneurs in your network, how they've been handling this entire situation, and where you see that they really need support. And one sec, Clara, are you there? Can you?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Finally, sorry about that. So hello, everybody. Sorry about this technical problem. So I'm Clara. I am co-founder of Ship2B. Ship2B is a non-profit foundation based in Barcelona. We started 7 years ago with the goal to promote an impact economy. And we do that by working with 4 types of stakeholders. We work with impact entrepreneurs, normally technology-based impact entrepreneurs, in topics like environment, health, and supporting the quality of life of vulnerable people. We also work with investors. We raised a small investment vehicle a few years ago where we've made 17 investments, and we're in the process of raising a 30 to 40 million euro fund this year, and also working on venture philanthropy. Third, we work with corporations, helping them integrate impact through open innovation and collaboration with impact startups mainly. And finally, we work with nonprofits, and we created the, so far, I think, only accelerator for nonprofits in Spain. So happy to be here. Thanks.
Perfect. All right. Now that we're all present, so I just want to say we start kind of with the idea of looking from the perspective of you all that have this network of entrepreneurs that you support, is to really see how you've seen things going since COVID hit, and where you see really there being an impact on the startups. for better or for worse. And for those that are worse, kind of where you all have stepped in to support and how that has looked from your perspective. So Clara, maybe you can start.
Okay, sure. So maybe because of the topics that we work on, but actually what we've seen is that a lot of our startups have taken the opportunity to see, whereas within their mission, by still keeping within their mission, they could somehow adapt their products or services or business models to offer solutions related to the crisis. And we are seeing several examples of that are actually being quite successful. So funnily enough, some of the startups are have found an opportunity. Of course, here I think you still have to balance, right? Being opportunistic and keeping within your mission and within what you are good at doing. So not I don't think anything should be allowed, no. But a lot of the startups are adapting very well. Some others are having a bit more difficulties. And here I think one of the key elements is how can you manage your costs and your cash flow, right? Those who were very short on cash, who were trying to close an investment round and where this investment round maybe has been delayed, are the ones that are having more difficulties. And the key factor here is, can you manage your cost and try to, keep on as long as possible until this passes and you can raise the money that you need.
Yeah. No, and I want to come back to some specific examples of kind of how you've seen these companies work. But first, I wanted to say with Nina and Florent, is your experience similar in terms of where you see the startups in your network, or have you seen something other than something different? Say.
I can take this one first. I think obviously every startup had to reorganize internally to manage their teams, make sure every employee is in a good situation to work, he's not feeling too lonely, so reorganize the whole organization. And externally, I think externally, that's also where we played a big part, making sure they have the right communication to reassure clients, to continue as much as possible to do sales, but being accurate and adjusted to the situation. Obviously, a lot of effort around the finance of the company. The majority of the projects we have in the program had raised funds in the last couple of months. So they're in a good situation, but when 18 months of cash seemed a long runway before, it seems very short now. So we are looking at everything and sometimes even drawing new business plans to readjust and also inviting them to think about the fact that it might not restart as we think or be a lot slower, etc. To finish on a concrete example that really impressed us. So we are working with 8 startups at the moment. And one of these is selling farms, indoor farms, to big corporates and other people or companies. And they have kind of a pilot or a demonstration site. All the veggies coming from this site was sold to restaurants. All of a sudden, all the restaurants closed down. So on one side, big corporates were no longer willing to buy farms and equipments. On the other side, restaurants buying the veggies were no longer open. They switched completely from B2B to B2C and started delivering baskets of veggies and gathering other small production sites around them to ship baskets in the region of Nantes, the city of Nantes, and it's doing extremely well. They've never done that much turnover, and numbers are impressive. So good things can happen too.
Do you think they'll keep this new business model after the crisis as well, or is the idea to go back to their original?
That's actually the discussion we have with them at the moment, what to do, because it's obviously very, very different from what they were doing initially, and the reason why they joined our program too, of selling farms. Now they're selling vegetables, but that's probably something that will be kept, as a side project or a second line of business.
Yeah. And Nina, how about you from your network? Do you have any insights or examples of kind of interesting things that startups have done to try and turn their businesses around?
Yeah, so I think, our experience is also very much aligned with both Clara and Florent here in terms of how the startups have been affected by this situation. So in our entire portfolio, I think like overall, we see that the founders and the team are really, proactive and, acting on this situation. And it's like affecting them in very different ways. So some for them, their business model and their like business idea and what they're doing is not, perfectly suited to take advantage of this situation. So for them, it's like they're working more on this crisis management part and, how can we survive in the long term, because they see that they will not get any new customers and maybe they were in the process of fundraising and everything just stops off, right? So, and then we have companies on the other side that are much more, positioned to actually take advantage of the situation. So we see kind of both ends, both in our existing portfolio, but also among the companies that are in the program right now. So we started a new batch of 12 fantastic companies just 3 days before the country here in Norway went into lockdown. So we had to, end the physical program after 3 days and send everyone back home, and then worked around the clock to launch an online version of the program, which we spent, months of preparing this physical program, and then the companies came and everything happened, and then we just had to, try to launch online, and at the same time, of course, take care of and support the companies because we were, so close to what they were experiencing. So I think, but overall, I think that the advice that we have been giving to our startups is like, go deep down into your financials and look into how you can stretch your money out for a longer period than you were planning initially, and also go back to your existing investors and see if anyone there are able to open up and support you with a little bit more, because it's also their intention for the company to survive. And we've also actively encouraged everyone to be more to share what they're experiencing in our alumni group to be able to help each other as well.
Yeah. And how have you guys seen this? That's also, I think, a really important question, because a lot of the troubles, of course, relate to cash and cash flow and investment side. Is how have you seen the investors in your network or that have invested in your startups? How have you seen them react? Are people stepping up to the plate, becoming more active in terms of participating in the companies? Are they injecting more money? Are they also facing their own struggles in terms of cash flow? How have you seen kind of the reaction of the investors and their communication also with the startups? Clara.
So yeah, sure. It really depends. I think it's still a little bit early. Early. We've been confined in Spain for 7 weeks now, so it feels like an eternity. But it's still relatively early on. I feel the first weeks everybody was a little bit like wait and see. So those companies that already had raised funds, normally the investors have been just asking, how can I support you? How are you doing? On our side, for example, as a fund, we immediately contacted the 17 companies we have invested in, and we looked at how are you doing, how can we help you, and so on. We helped them think through it. But in terms of new rounds, normally people have just stopped and freeze and said, okay, let's see how long this lasts and what happens. No? Now this it seems like we might start to deconfine in a couple of weeks, but nobody knows at what speed, if it's coming back. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And what we felt is that some of the bigger investors, institutional investors, are stepping up because they feel the responsibility they have in supporting the ecosystem and contributing to this economic crisis that for sure will kick in, not getting worse, right? At least not because of them. So some of them have immediately reached out to say, hey, I'm still here, I'm still interested, and count me in and let's talk. And if it has to be Skype, let's do Skype or Zoom or whatever, right? And others are a bit more wait and see. So I think we'll have to see in the next month how it plays out to see what the real consequences on investment will be, if it's a long-lasting shock or if it's just a temporary delay of operations.
Yeah. No, and I'm also wondering, is there a difference? Because right, there's certain, like if you're in a healthcare startup right now, you can be really well placed to do really well, when there's some other sectors, right, that are going to clearly benefit from the situation, and others that are really going to struggle because of the situation. And there's investors that match that as well, right? Like if you're an investor that's investing in healthcare, this actually might be a time to really push investments. So are you seeing a different reaction from investors based on kind of their sector focus and where they're seeing this crisis going? Nina?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of, various investors, both in our funds in Heir and Katapult, but also, in the network and as mentors, and they're engaged in working with the companies. So I think also right when this happened, since we just started the program, we were also in the process of closing our Accelerator fund. So we experienced that, some of the investors that were initially on board, but they're maybe a bit more risk averse, or, the situation was, all of a sudden very difficult for them personally or in relation to their jobs and so forth. So some investors pulled out, but we were also approached by other investors that, see this as a big opportunity, and they know the quality of the startups that we have selected for the program. So we actually got, more investors in that pulled out. So it was, positive experience in that regard. But we also see, of course, that many investors are, holding their horses and just they want to wait and see. And I think, but we also have a lot of investors in our network that have actively now approached us and ask if they can be put in touch with the companies that we have. So that's very interesting. And we had this investor training in the program yesterday with one of the most well-known angel investors here in Norway, and he did a new investment last week. So that's you see a lot of the different mindsets among the investors as well.
Yeah, it's a different side of well, it's a different perspective, right, than business as usual. Okay. And Florent, I'm wondering, because you have a different kind of relationship also with the investors, because they're also then co-owners of the Accelerator. Can you maybe explain how this has worked for you? Because it's a different kind of model than a more traditional Accelerator investor relationship.
Yes, so that's correct. You were asking the question, who stepped up during this period? On our side at 50 Partners, the partners did. I was joking about it, but it's not a retirement club. They're all active, still leading their business, or if not doing so, they're building new businesses too. So they're very active in the economy at the moment, and despite very busy schedule and sometimes going through hard times, on their side too, with their companies, they managed to dedicate a lot of times to the startups in the program, to free up some time to be present, to advise our founders. So the partners really stepped up, and they're even more present in the program. We can reach them very easily, and I think it's enhancing or improving the value of what we're doing. So that's really positive. What we observe in general is that you can't work on your own in this situation. You need to be part of a network, any network, ideally a network which is caring, with good values, your values, people who will care, pay attention, listen to you, and try to help you make the most of this situation. So that's what we're seeing with the partners, but also among the founders of our startups. We see our Slack channels more and more active. And there is a lot of demand for, hey, could we do something together? Or maybe we could do cross businesses. You're doing this, I'm doing that. We could join forces and try to make a joint offer or something like that. So very positive, and I think it's reinforcing the role of accelerators and entrepreneurs network in this time.
I totally agree with you, Florent. And actually, we're also seeing some of these collaborations, and we also did a couple of Zoom calls with alumni. And one of the things we were encouraging them to do is to connect more and share more. I think in these times of crisis, it's easy to get caught up by fear and to close up in your cocoon and say, okay, how do I protect myself? And I need to care about my business. And of course, you need to protect yourself and care. But sometimes by opening up and listening and sharing generously, opportunities also come your way. So we've had a couple of entrepreneurs who shared interesting experiences, such as reaching out to clients and saying things like, how can we help you? You've been helping us. Now there's a crisis and you have problems. Is there something we can do for you? And here we are, right? So I think it's a good moment to explore these synergies and build this idea that we're in this together.
Yeah. And it's a really nice, I mean, I think that's everyone is experiencing this. And I don't know if this is unique to the impact sector or not, but it's really wonderful to see how open people are to having the discussions, to interacting, to collaborating, and to sharing information really honestly and openly. And I think that's been really probably nice for all of us, and also for kind of entrepreneurs across the board. And so I'm wondering also, have you all had anyone, kind of any surprise reach outs? Are there partners or other folks that have reached out to you where you've started new relationships that have come out of this? That weren't things that would have happened otherwise, or that you think will be of a lasting impact in terms of providing value or building that kind of a longer term collaboration?
Yeah, we have actually. One of the bases of our models is we work with corporations, as I said, to help them with open innovation and integrating impact through collaboration with impact startups. And some of these corporations also support the accelerator in this way. And a new potential partner reached out to us. This is a company that actually is benefiting from the crisis because they sell dairy products and food. And with the fear, everybody went to supermarkets and started buying milk and butter and cheese. So their sales have increased. And they had already in mind to launch a program to become more sustainable and to find startups in the sustainability space and climate change space to collaborate with. And at this moment, they felt, well, we are doing even better economically, and these startups are struggling now more than ever. So this is the time to accelerate the process. So we had 2 Skype calls literally, and after this, they decided to join us and launch a program. So we met over Zoom and we closed the deal over Zoom in 2 weeks, which was amazing. Never happened to me before. I wish there's more. If anyone's listening, we're ready.
Join. Anyone else? Have you guys had any interesting contacts so far since this has all happened?
Well, I think not specifically inbound, but I think the startups and ourselves, 50 partners, were surprised to see that people actually have time. We wanted to connect with a few large corporates in France to have them join our friend network and get them involved in helping these startups. And a lot of CSR directors and innovation directors who are head of big teams and with big responsibilities in large companies are now, well, actually locked home, and they would accept to spend half an hour to explore new opportunities. And so that's, people are actually quite available to speak and happy to speak about new things and positive things. And we're dealing with positive topics here. So it's interesting.
Okay, and I want to do one more quick question on the entrepreneurs before we move on. I want to see kind of what's happening for you all also with the acceleration process and how you're looking at your business model. But we talked a lot about this cash flow and trying to hold on to cash longer. Do you have some concrete examples or ideas to share of how companies have done this, or things that you're recommending? Because I think we also have a lot of folks that are not part of accelerator networks or necessarily having this kind of support system, and this kind of advice is really useful for them to think about the way that they're managing their own kind of business planning and structure.
Yes, I think one example from our side is that many of the companies in the program right now, of the 12 companies, they were planning to raise a new round straight after the program. So that's also, one of the main focuses of programs like ours is, the investor readiness part and, getting them ready for their next round. And, all of a sudden this just happens and everything is put on hold, but they are still in need of the money. So we have one alumni company where the founder, she has raised, I think, more than $1 million just in grants. So she's like kind of an expert in grants, but also in what we call, creative fundraising. So it's also her approach of, partnering up with foundations and others and tailor her product to them and to get paid for that, and then also do that together with writing grants and applying for grants. So we had this big session last week with her, sharing of all her knowledge to the companies in the core that are in very much need for other ways of raising money right now. And also across our portfolio network, we have had this collective effort of everyone putting names of grants into this big spreadsheet that we have shared across with all the companies it's very, very helpful.
Yeah, which is really super. And I think there's also been things, and I don't know if this has had impact on all of you as well, but that in every different country is handling this a bit different in terms of how also the government is stepping in to support or not support the sectors. But have you seen significant helps from your respective governments in terms of trying to help startups or trying to help the sustainability ecosystem that have been effective?
Yeah, I can just comment briefly on that. But so absolutely, here in Norway, there's also been this, big collective effort from the startup ecosystem that put a lot of pressure really quickly on the government to not, skip the startups and the small and vulnerable companies in like the first round of building these crisis packages, as they have been, super good at doing. But it's very it's not always that startups and the small companies are the first ones to be prioritized, but they have been launching various crisis packages and new grants and such that have been very helpful. But that will be especially for Norwegian startups.
Yeah.
It is a little bit the same in France. The French government has moved very quickly to help companies. A lot of money is poured to inject in these businesses, any type of businesses actually. So it's available to digital or tech companies as well as impact companies, but it's there. The government is also helping a lot on paying salaries if you've people made redundant or people who can no longer run their activity in your business. I think maybe to finish on that point, what we did to help on that front was there are a lot of stuff available in the ecosystem. Everyone is saying, I'm helping, money is here, money is there. But two things: first, it's a lot of noise, and second, it's still admin work. So it can be complicated or painful. So what we did is we gathered on a Notion page all what we found the most efficient way to act or the best resources, so that we had a summary for our startups and they could just in one glance and a few links click here and there and go find some help, advice or public financing. So that was the 50 Partners War Room that is actually, we also opened to all the ecosystem. We decided not to keep it only for our startups, but we shared it with everyone.
Yeah,
right.
In this sense, what we did is we leveraged some of the partners that we have. For example, we have a partnership with PwC Foundation here in Spain for a program where they do mentoring. And because of the crisis, we were not able to develop all the mentoring activities that were planned as they were planned. So we replaced part of that with mentoring and advice from PwC consultants about all of these governmental instruments that have been put in place. A lot of them, or most of them, are not specific for startups. They are targeted as SMEs, for example, but they can still be available. So we organized a few webinars where the startups could connect and could ask about their particular case. And in this way, it was a bit of a win-win. I think it's a good moment also for this type of pro bono services, because a lot of people are at home and have less activity than usual. So it's a good moment to pick on their brains.
Yeah. No, it's a really good moment, and I think it's also really nice because we were also sharing a bit of information on ChangeNOW, and then realized so many people are sharing information on all of the grants and the opportunities, and like you said, Florent, it's a lot to go through, because actually there is money that's popping up in different places, but of course with different criteria. So it's really nice to have more kind of specific filtering, let's say, going in to help the startups to really see what things can be useful for them. Okay, so I want to move on and look a little bit as for you all and how this whole crisis and the confinement in particular has changed your business model, right? And especially for you, Nina and Clara, because you guys run more traditional accelerator programs where people are generally physically together. Florent, that's not as much the case. And so is to get an idea from you all how this transition has happened, how you've managed it in terms of running your acceleration programs more online. And Ship to Be, you all had last week, a full week that was online, and Nina, now your entire cohort is online. Is to get a bit of your feel of what that has meant for your programs, and a bit what's the good and the bad and the things that you'll also take away and potentially carry on into the future of how you actually work and bring together your entrepreneurs.
Want to start, Nina?
Yeah. No.
Sorry, I thought you were starting, Clara. But yeah, of course I can go. As I said earlier as well, you know, we have only been running physical programs in Oslo for 3 months. That's what we do, and that's what we have become luckily pretty good at doing. But we're planning that in detail in months before the program happens, and then we had to just turn around in a couple of days to launch the program online. And it's been part of Katapult's growth plan since the very beginning to one day launch this online accelerator program, but we had imagined a little bit different format for more startups at a time, a little bit earlier stage, so it didn't have to do the content so much like tailored to their individual needs as we do in the physical program that we have. So it's been super challenging, but we are always throwing our startups just into new opportunities and say that's where the learning and magic happens. And now we're just have to do that ourselves. So I think what we see as a big value point in the program that we normally have are the physical meetings and the serendipities that are just happening over coffee, or when we go out for a beer, or when we do the physical workouts as we do in the program as well. So we kind of lose out on that, but then we also just have to structure the program and schedule in those open sessions for sharing and caring and just like brainstorming together. And I think also what I was a little bit afraid of as managing the program from our side is that when people are elsewhere and across different time zones, all the way from Oslo to Bogota in Colombia, is that the lack of control of actually having the companies in the sessions and having them take part in everything that is happening, because that's very easy when you have a physical program. It's just going around and gather people if they're not joining. But I think both because of the COVID situation and the need for these CEOs especially to be part of a group of companies and people that are both experiencing their own situations, but also the supporting network and the access to capital they get through the program, maybe it's made them even more engaged and focused. So it's been overwhelming in terms of commitment, and then people actually showing up for everything that is happening. So on my side and our side here at Katapult, I think we have the feeling now that we are getting to know these people even better than we are in the physical program, because we're also spending much more time with them one-on-one in terms of following up and supporting them. So it's been a very interesting experience so far. And also in terms of the growth plan that we've had of launching a program online, now we're just forced to get the experience now, so it will be easier to do that as well. Maybe not too long time. Yes.
Yeah, for us it's a bit similar, I guess. So our program has always had a big part that was online. But some of the jewels of the crown were these moments where we physically get together for an entire week or for 3 days. And of course, there the most important is not just the content you share or the mentoring, which is vital, but also, as Nina was mentioning, all this human aspect of the cohort and the group and the serendipity and so on. So actually, last week we were supposed to have one of these in presence boot camps. which was also actually a selection week. And we were in the middle of a methodological change this year, where we had decided that in this first selection phase, we wanted to have more startups and support them for a bit longer. It used to be a 2-day program. We made it a 5-day program, so we could get to know them more, give them more value, and select the best ones from there for the second phase. So suddenly we found ourselves in the middle of an already methodological change with 32 startups to be supported for one entire week, and realizing 4 weeks ago that we had to do this online, otherwise it couldn't happen. So we were really worried, and what we did is that we made an effort to redesign with technology in mind. So we did some content out, we brought in new content, we thought about formats. So we ideated not just Zoom and Zoom rooms, but a Telegram group. We ideated having videos from the team to welcome the day or to sum up the day at the end of the day. So things like this. And actually we were really, really surprised because it has worked wonders. Some of the disadvantages of not being in person that we anticipated having actually didn't happen. Some of them happened, of course, but some of them actually didn't happen, and we found ways around them. And we've also realized that doing it online has certain advantages. And exactly as Nina was saying, we feel we even got to share more sometimes. You got into people's homes, we shared CrossFit sessions, we shared meditation sessions, we shared beers online. So that was really fun. And I don't know yet, it's too early to say whether this is here to stay or not completely. But I definitely think that we're going to learn and incorporate things from this experience in the future, for sure.
And Florent, for you, because I know you guys don't do a kind of a physical program, but you have people all co-located as well. Like how has this changed kind of your day-to-day business, positive or negative, or has it much?
Good question. Well, so we have a venue, a place in the center of Paris, which is called the Loft. We have 100 desks there. So we still have some teams, not all of them, because we also have startups working with startups who are located in other cities in France. But some of the teams are physically present at Le Loft next to us, the management team. So obviously the place, the venue is closed. So we turned everything into Zoom and Visio, as everyone did. I think very quickly for us, the discussion was around what should we do with our investment committee. We have 4 during the year, 4 a year, one every quarter, and the one scheduled for early April was a real question for us. We actually decided to maintain it. On one hand, the partners were very happy to see that not the whole world was stopping. We were continuing business. On the other hand, the startup, because we really wanted to introduce to the partners one startup during this committee. The startup was actually very keen to do that online and very happy to hear that they could still have a chance to meet the partners and apply to join the program. So we did it. That was a Zoom, worked out really well. The project has been confirmed, so they will join us, and we're very happy about it, as everyone is. That being said, questions remain because we don't know how long this will last. And for the next committee, we're wondering whether we could really move on with a team that we've never met physically in a room or at a restaurant or coffee or beer. The difference with other programs is that we work 4 to 5 years with projects we select, always on a mentorship basis. But it's still a very, very long program. So there is a lot of human elements in that. So that's a big question mark for us. Can Zoom really replace everything? Tough question. But no, that's it. And with the startups, other than that, we've been very operational, even more than before. Sometimes doing some stuff, taking some stuff from their plates and doing it for them, just to give them a chance to get some rest or to do other stuff. We've also done beers online, etc. Even though I think we're looking forward to the next ones in a proper venue.
I think we're all looking forward to the time when we can actually meet our colleagues and friends again. It's not quite the same, but it's not bad as a substitute as far as it goes, I think, which has been a really, really interesting learning from all of this. What about the future? Right. So I think we've talked about a couple of things that I think are really interesting. So one is kind of the changing business models and how this can have a lasting effect on the way that accelerators work. But I think the other point that Florent made is that this really does highlight the role that accelerators play to support startups and how much of an aid that is, basically, for people to have a sense of community and support, especially those obviously that are struggling at this time, and to have that kind of insight and feedback. And so I'm wondering, where do you see, do you expect changes, I guess, with your relationship with startups, with the demand, or with the relationship that you have kind of currently with either your alumni or your current cohorts of startups that will come out of this? Because it does change the relationship a bit in how you work with them and relate with them. What do you think all of that means, kind of looking to the future of your structures? Maybe Clara, you want to start?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure. It's a really tough question. One of the things I feel is that this is a moment of truth for all of us, where in moments of crisis, you see people's true colors, no? And who's in it for real and who's there because of the hype or whatever. So one of the things where we've been getting positive feedback from our community is the feeling of, you guys have been there for us, no? One of the first things we did was write an email to everybody in the community and say, if you have needs, if you have doubts, is there anything we can help you with? Hey, let's do a Zoom call so we can share how you're doing, you know? Just that small gesture shows that you are there. And that is important, having someone you can turn to. So some people have used it, others haven't. Some entrepreneurs have just called those of us who had supported them at the time that they had been accelerated. And for some of them, it's been 3 or 4 or 5 years even, that they feel they can still pick up the phone and say, hey, I have this doubt, what do you see? And maybe the other big element of value that they've seen is, and this in general, I think for accelerators, is not so much getting training, because training is becoming a commodity, right? But it's about someone telling you the truth, giving you honest feedback, no? At a moment where it's easy to fall into easy messages like, hey, you'll be all right, sure, you have a great business. Having someone telling you, be careful, I think you have a risk element here that you're not considering, or hey, careful, because here with the team you should be, you know, whatever, your communication. Having this honest feedback, and of course then the entrepreneur owns the project and needs to decide, no? But having someone you can count on to give you a different perspective that is honest and that will tell you what you don't want to hear actually has proven very valuable to a lot of them.
Yeah, Florent, that's something that we had talked about as well, no? That's a big part of the role that you all are playing as well with your entrepreneurs.
Yes. So we, as an accelerator, advise and mentor the startups and bring them a lot of stuff, office space, the partners, time from corporates, an international program, etc., etc. The list is long, and we're very, very proactive and operational in the businesses. That being said, we can bring money through the partners, investing directly in the companies, and that happens very often. But the primary thing in what we do is not the money. And during the last maybe 18 months or last 2 years, money was everywhere. Everything was about money. My valuation, when will I raise money, how much will I raise, with whom, etc., etc. So some entrepreneurs tended to forget about the kind of the essential of their business. Whom am I bringing value to? Why am I doing that? Having 2 or 3 or 10 millions in the bank, does it mean I've succeeded yet? I'm not sure. You really need to spend this money wisely and make the most of it to succeed. So some entrepreneurs tended to forget that closing a round, succeeding in raising funds, didn't mean success at all. I think things will change. And I think, as I said previously, a network, spending a lot of time in being close to successful entrepreneurs who have already been through crisis, will be even more important and essential. And even to find money, you need to be wiser, to have a better approach, etc., etc. So I think for us, in terms of operations, not much will change, but in terms of value proposition, as 50 partners, things might change. I'm confident in that, and that's why we are quite confident in the model we have with the startups. Because there is obviously, one thing I didn't say is to join our program, there is a small share, like an equity fee for the startup, and this equity goes to the partners. So the partners are not mentors. They're not doing that for free. They're really committed to help the business succeed. And this little equity, it's not much, but will still guarantee that over time, during many years, you'll have these people around you to help you open doors, share network, advice, etc. So I think that the value for that will increase a little bit, probably.
Yeah. No, which is also really nice to see, because I think there is there is a lot of hype around raising money, and that's enough to be success, and that this really brings things back down to the essentials of, can you run a business and can you make it profitable without constant cash injections, which, with the exception of research or a few other kind of very specific types of startups, it should be that there's cash flow, and there should be cash flow relatively early, and that this kind of brings back that lesson, that it's not just about constantly rolling the ball to try and find more cash, but really generating something from your core business. And Nina, I don't know if you have anything to add on that front in terms of what your experience has been.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think, our hope and in terms of, what this could lead to in the bigger picture, especially for, impact driven startups, is that, as humanity, we're now much more focused on what really matters. It's not, all about buying the new stuff and having and owning everything and traveling for your own pleasure. It's, how can we, take care of the people that we love and the people that we have around us, and make sure that, the economy survives and that people keep their jobs. So maybe in the long term, and not too long term, there will be, more capital allocated into investments into the startups that are actually bringing the right solutions to the table. And it's I think with the mindset of all of us here, and then here is in Katapult as well, is that they truly believe that we have in the fact that there is no trade-off between doing something good and having high financial returns. And it's also in this impact or social entrepreneurship community, it's it's what we experience with the companies that we have in our network and the investors, is that the gap between the investors and the startups, as it's been traditionally, it's much more narrow. So it's much more like a balanced mindset, and everyone is working for the greater good. So it's everything is a little bit more human. And I think in terms of what we're all doing and working for, I think the situation we will come out on the better end of this, and also for the startups, because we see, at least what we see, their reaction of accepting the status quo and adapting, and quickly turning around and looking for opportunities. It's been super interesting and good to see over the last weeks. So at least we are very positive what the future and the time post-corona will look like.
Yeah, no, I think we are too. And there's been a whole slew of we were talking about that a bit with the colleagues at ChangeNOW about what will this look like in terms of investing, because after the financial crisis in 2008, there was a lot of analysis that was done on impact investing, and the fact that money didn't flow out as it did with a lot of the other sectors. And in terms of the returns also, they stayed a lot more interesting than returns on more traditional sectors that aren't kind of socially focused. And so a lot of this analysis has been looking at what's going to happen this time, and are we going to see that same kind of rather cash inflow than outflow as people reevaluate a bit where they're putting their money, but also what generates real value and provides a real service to humanity, to the environment, to society at large, and that those are really the communities that we're all serving and working toward. And we are getting very close to the end of our time. And so I would like to close with asking you all if you have any particular piece of advice for the entrepreneurs that are out there listening, or if you want to invite partners or anything otherwise. But I think really that you'll have some really amazing experiences to share. And if you have any advice for those that are not part of your network, or who need some support in this time to keep the businesses going, that's much appreciated. I don't know if anyone wants to start.
Yeah, I can start. I think the two things, that one learning for us internally, the 50 partners team, and one thing that entrepreneurs should have in mind is do not postpone. Do not say I'll do that end of May because the lockdown will be over and it will be back to normal. So do things now. Talk to your clients now. If you're looking for money and you can't live without it, then go search for it now. Start conversations now, etc., etc. So do not postpone. Go out, speak, and do today everything that can be done today. Maybe in a different way, and maybe the message should change, and maybe the approach should change. But do not postpone. And the second thing is, I'm quite happy about that because I come from the sales background. I've practiced sales actively in different companies, but I think sales will be back at the center of the entrepreneur's mission, and I'm so happy about that. I mean, come on, the first income source for a startup or any business is sales. Whatever, how many clients you can have, and how much you can sell your product, because it's interesting and people are willing to buy for it. So not hiding behind fundraising, etc., but going out, trying to sell my product will be the only thing to do. And it's good because in the impact ecosystem, the product or services that are sold are essential. We need them for the people or the planet. So good stuff. Let's go out and sell this brilliant innovation that we have in stock.
Super, thank you. And Clara, Nina?
Yeah, so if you want, maybe I'd say three things, not very different from Florent, but first thing is, as I said before, balance opportunity and mission. I think it's easy to get derailed by opportunities that pop up, siren calls, and I think it's a very good moment to refocus on your mission. What is it that you really want to offer to the world? What is your core business? What is it that you're able to do? And within that mission, if you're able to pivot somehow to adapt to the situation, then that is fantastic. And it might even be a great opportunity for the future of your startup. But be careful with ditching out what you were doing and going into a completely different business just because, right? The second thing is don't take anything for granted. Don't assume that this will be over in 2 weeks. Don't assume that you cannot sell now or that you cannot raise a fund because everything has stopped. So, and don't postpone, as you were saying, no? And very linked to that, open an empathic dialogue with your stakeholders. So I think it's a good moment. In a way, we are entering people's homes because we are having Skypes of people's homes and with children popping around. I feel that somehow we have lost the masks that sometimes we have in the business world, appearing with your suit. And it's a good moment to just be transparent and say, here, this is what we do. This is who we are. This is where we're struggling. This is what we can offer. Are you interested? And of course, be sensitive to the fact that the person on the other side, be it an investor, a client, a coworker, or whatever, might be having a difficult situation, personal or professional, and it might not be the time to engage in this conversation, but then they will tell you, right? I think just don't take anything for granted and be sensitive and engage in dialogue and try to find this win-win compromise.
Great. And Nina?
Yeah, I would like to I think, from our side and my side, it's a lot of aligned with the Clara and Florent and everything that you just said. But I think, in terms of the transparency part that you're mentioning, Clara, I think that's, super, super important as an entrepreneur, especially as the CEO or main founder of a company, is, be transparent and open and don't try to, hide information from both your employees, your customers, your existing stakeholders and new investors and so forth. So I think our advice to the startups that we are working with now is also to, be patient, get the overview of your situation, and then, focus on what really matters right now, because it's very limited time to, pivot and do the changes that you have to do to make sure that your company survives. And I think what it is, just to repeat what I already said as well, to be able to actually accept the situation, but then, adapt and act. So it's not, accept and lean back and just hope that everything will pass, because that is not going to happen for anyone. But, still, accept what is happening, and then, be proactive and act on that. I think that's really important. And there will be better times with more capital for these brilliant companies as well.
Yes, hopefully soon.
Yes.
There will be more money available and more startups and more continuation very soon. So, yeah. All right, all of you, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for the conversation, and thank you for your honesty. Really, it's been super nice having this discussion. And I hope for those of you who have been listening that this has been useful for you to also see what's happening in different places, how the accelerators and different entrepreneurs are managing this situation, and inspired some thoughts on your part. And we'll be holding another session this coming Thursday that will be a discussion with investors. So we're going to be having a talk with some of the investors from our network, different types of investors. So that should give some perspective as well in terms of what the constraints are on the investor side, how money is or is not flowing, and kind of what they're looking at and thinking for now. So we hope you can join us for that next session. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, ChangeNOW, and thank you, Briera Dale.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.